Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey, this is Craig Garber. You know me as host of the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, but when I'm not interviewing world-class guitar players, I'm busy helping clients with their marketing. In fact, since March of 2000, I've helped over 300 clients in 108 different industries all over the world sell everything from $20 books to $5,000 seminar seats and everything in between. I even authored a book about my experience called How to Make Maximum Money with Minimum Customers. Now, if you own or operate a business, ask yourself the following marketing-related questions and be honest with your answers. Are you generating fresh new qualified leads on a daily basis? Is your website generating enough sales? And if not, do you know why? Is your advertising effective? Is it predictably and reliably making you several multiples of what you're spending on it? And lastly, are you consistently communicating with your email list? Or do you have an email list of prospects and customers, but you have no idea what to say to them, how often to say it, or how to make money with this list? If you need solutions for these marketing problems, then you need to book a one-on-one marketing strategy session with me. After this strategy session, you'll know how to speak to and make money with your email list, how to use your website to attract customers and clients who are ready to buy from you now, and how to sell your goods and services for top dollar and at much higher profit margins than your competition. Listen, stop hoping things will get better on their own. Hope is not a very good business strategy. Instead, book a marketing strategy session with me by going to everyonelovesguitar.com/marketing and find out if your business meets the 5 criteria you need to qualify for this service. Again, that's everyonelovesguitar.com/marketing. Thanks for listening. Now let's get on with the show. Hey, everybody. This is Craig Garber. And right now, while this is fresh on your mind and before anything else comes up, head on over to everyonelovesguitar.com and sign up to get behind-the-scenes information about upcoming guests and early access to a number of great programs we're going to be rolling out soon. Welcome to today's show. So I want to tell you 3 things I know about our current guest today. First of all, he's got one of the best voices in rock and roll that I have heard perhaps since Paul Rodgers. In fact, it's like if Paul Rodgers smoked like 1,000 packs of cigarettes and came back but still could sing clear and clean, somehow that's the voice of today's guest. He's also him and his band members. I've met him and the other guitar player. They're both incredibly polite, really hardworking young guys. And the third thing I know is that they make some great fucking music. You know, they it's almost like, you know, they came back from the 70s and did everything that's right. Their album is moving up the charts, and we'll talk about that. It's getting recognition from all the right places online, and I'm really excited. So let me read up the biography, and then I'll let you know who our guest is. It says, I was brought up in a very musical family. I can't really remember a time when I wasn't playing music. My grandfather was a well-known old-time fiddler, and Dad gigged locally playing country music. So as a child, I had a steady diet of Bill Monroe, Merle Haggard, and Bob Wills. I got into playing guitar after listening to Dad's B.B. King tapes, and it changed my life immediately. I knew at that exact moment what I wanted to do. So long story short, I set out to form my own band, and I've not had to play wagon wheel every night, and that journey led to another big moment, which was forming a friendship with Greg Martin from the Kentucky Headhunters. Side note, Greg is a wonderful guy. I interviewed him in episode number 55. If you haven't heard that, check it out. He's just an amazing person, besides being an incredible musician. Anyway, onward. With Greg's guidance, the guys and I independently released our first album, Tough Times, which is a tribute to John Brim, which received acclaim from ZZ Top's Billy F. Gibbons and opened doors to get out there and do our thing and rub elbows with a few of our heroes. Fast forward to last winter, the band is now managed by Paul Nelson of Johnny Winter fame, and he was instrumental in getting us a deal with Cleopatra Records, which gave birth to our second release, Eyes of the Sun, which we're going to discuss in detail today. From a guitar standpoint, Greg has taught me to be a purist. Guitar, cable, amp, period, and made me a total believer in vintage instruments and amplifiers. It's all in your hands. I'm here today with Boone Froggett, one of the guitar players from OTIS. And first of all, for people who don't know OTIS yet, they're just an amazing kick-ass hard rock blues band. It's like if Paul Kossoff and Mountain and Badfinger and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young all got together and had a baby. That's what these guys sound like. They write really beautiful, really original melodies, and honestly, Boone's voice is absolutely incredible. Like when I first heard him, I sent him a text. I'm like, man, how old are you? He said 27. I'm like, that's no way. It doesn't sound like he's 27. He sounds amazing. Think like Joe Cocker version of With a Little Help from My Friends at Woodstock, only no stuttering and no, nothing sloppy, just raw, straight ahead, balls to the wall, dripping with soul. And honestly, outside of maybe Led Zeppelin 1, the songs on and the production and the riffs on their first album, Eyes of the Sun, are not like anything you typically hear from a band's first album. They're really very mature musically and very creative, and they're not afraid to take risks. And it's not just a re-release of the same old shit you've heard regurgitated 1,000 times. It's totally inventive, creative licks, and the melodies as well. So I'm really excited for these guys, and I've been looking forward to talking with them for a while now. Again, we're chatting with Boone Froggett from the band OTIS, and at some point in the future, I think we'll have his co-conspirator on guitar, Steve Jewell. So Boone, thanks so much for your time, and I appreciate you coming on the show.
No, man. Thank you, man. Glad to be here.
Awesome. How did you and Steve Jewell meet, and how'd you guys decide to put OTIS together?
It's kind of funny. My dad and Steve's dad, they were well known in the local music scene for kind of being in a cover band and doing that. So me and Steve kind of knew of each other. OTIS actually started out as a three-piece. We'd been three-piece for maybe 2 years before I met Steve, and I invited him to come out to our EP release and jam. Because we were friends, we worked at the same place, and he got up with us, and I knew from that moment, I was like, we got to have this guy. He's great, because we instantly started playing harmonies with each other, playing licks off each other. So I knew we were going in a good direction.
That's awesome. And I give you credit, because a lot of people would have been afraid to do that. Would have been like, shit, I don't want to bring another guy in because, fill in the blank, any number of reasons.
Yeah, I felt that way about some other people, but I didn't feel that way about Steve, because he was always playing for the song and playing for the moment. He wasn't trying to, hog the spotlight for anybody else.
Yeah, well, both of you come across like that personality-wise. Totally no ego, just like all about the music, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is cool. So who now that you got two guitar players that are both great, is like who plays lead usually, or do you guys alternate, or how does that work?
It's definitely a shared thing. I wouldn't say that there's any lead or rhythm player in OTIS. We split it up. We usually try to do a solo each song, and then to have some kind of part that we play together. It doesn't always work out that way, because we try to serve the song, but that's kind of the general idea, because writing, me and Steve play off each other so well, it just becomes an integral part of the song.
I love that phrase. You've used it twice now in this short time. Serve the song, man. That's really very freaking cool. And I think that's like a very Greg Martin Zen sounding thing, man. If you serve the song will serve you kind of thing, right?
Oh yeah, I've got a lot of Greg Martinism.
How'd you meet Greg?
Of course, growing up here in Glasgow, Kentucky, I was a huge fan of the Headhunters, and then he had kind of this side rock and roll project called Rufus Huff, which
I know about that.
Yeah, there would be no OTIS without Rufus Huff. So I reached out to Greg and started, asking questions about guitars and amps, and we became friends. And he invited me out to some Headhunter shows, and we just kind of been buddies ever since.
Yeah, he's a lovely guy. Real cool guy. They're coming down here, I think, next month, so I'm really excited to go meet them in person, him and Richard.
Oh, you'll enjoy that.
I'm looking forward to it, believe me, man. And Greg introduced you guys to Paul?
Oh, that's kind of a neat story. In February of 2014, I went and saw Johnny Winter, but before that, this is how weird Facebook is. I clicked on an event that I was going to the show, and then the drummer from Johnny Winter, Tommy, messaged me on Facebook, and he said, "Hey, I see you're mutual friends with Greg Martin." He says, "Do you think that Greg Martin would be interested in coming and meeting Johnny and seeing the show?" And I was like, "Well, I'll see what I can do. see if I can talk him into it."
If you could convince Greg to meet Johnny Winter, yeah, that's going to be difficult.
Right. So,
twist my arm.
So of course we went, and they were so gracious to us. We went up and kind of spent the day. It was in Owensboro, Kentucky. Got to hang with the band. Got to hang with Johnny, and then I bumped into Paul there. So that was the first time I met him.
Now, did Greg get to play with Johnny on stage?
No, they talked about it, but for whatever reason, it didn't happen. I think Greg probably just wanted to enjoy, seeing Johnny.
Well, I'll tell you why I asked that, because I was telling you, I interviewed Paul, and we had an extensive conversation. Johnny didn't like that, apparently. Johnny just didn't like people coming up on, especially unless it was planned and part of the show. And this is a funny story that Paul told us. He said that they were at Warren Haynes' Christmas Jam in Asheville, the one I think it's tonight, but it's obviously several years back. And Warren was supposed to play up there with him, but it was all prearranged. So Warren comes over to Paul and says something like, "Hey, Paul, I have another guest who would love to come on stage with us, and he'd like to jam." And Paul goes, "Warren, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen." And Paul didn't know this, but the guest they were talking about was standing right behind Paul, and then Paul was facing Warren. And he goes, "Well, I really think you should consider this. He's a really good guy." And he goes, "Look, Johnny does not like that." And he goes, "Well, how about if we just play a 12-bar blues?" And he goes, "Man, I hate to be the messenger, but on Johnny's behalf, no." And he goes, "Well, the guy that wants to come on the jam with us is right behind you." And Paul turns around, it's John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin. And he's like, "Look, imagine how he must feel having to say no to John Paul Jones." But he said, that's why I was asking that, because Johnny was really apparently not, that just wasn't his thing. Everybody's got their own quirks, and that was Johnny's. He didn't want anybody coming up, and it is what it is. And he told a couple of more funny stories about that. But Paul's an amazingly talented producer and a very experienced player of equal talent. In what ways did he change or help you guys as far as putting your record together?
Well, like I said, he came down here in Glasgow, Kentucky for the second half of the record, and man, he's just got such a great ear, and he's a genius when it comes to song form. On the song "Wash My Hands," the way we had it arranged before he came was it was a little more lengthier, and he had the idea of putting this part in there where I sang the chorus twice, just stuff like that. He's just very smart when it comes to record production and all that sort of stuff. And just having somebody like that in the room, it brings a good vibe.
Did it also help you? I would imagine it probably took a little pressure off of you all.
Yeah, exactly. Knowing that there was a set of ears there and in a control room, and knowing where Paul came from and all the knowledge he has, it took a weight off of us.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, I can see that. So let's talk about the new album. It's amazing. I want to talk to you about some of the songs on it. Let's start with "Eyes of the Sun," which is the title song. Great song, great slide guitar. Do you play slide on that, or is that Steve?
No, that's Steve on that one.
Did you know if he plays an open tuning or standard tuning?
It's open G.
Open G plays him.
It's not like Keith Richards' open G. It's more like a dobro open G. Okay,
interesting. And what prompted you to name the LP after that song?
Well, that ended up being the name of the song, and I think somebody mentioned, like, wow, that'd be a good album cover, good basis for artwork. So we ended up going with it.
Cool. "Shake You." You got now. My original note said there's some great keys in there, but I said the same thing to Paul in a song, and he goes, "No, it's not keys. It's the way I layered the guitar." So I'm wondering now, is it actually keys in that song "Shake You," or did you guys do something similar and layer guitars?
There is a lot of guitar layering in that song, but our buddy Eddie Stone from Macon, Georgia, came up and played some B3 parts on that.
Yeah, that's what
he's from the Southern rock band Doc Holliday, if you remember them.
I don't, but it sounded great, man. I'm gonna check him out.
He's played with Wet Willie quite a bit as well.
That's a name I haven't heard in a while. Then you got "Turn to Stone," and I'm about to listen to it, and I thought, okay, another cover of Joe Walsh's song. Great song, loads of people have covered it, and it was not anything like it was an original song.
Sure.
Really sweet blues, kind of gospel like. What was the backstory to that song?
That kind of goes back to that's another Eddie story. We were in Macon, Georgia. We were opening for Wet Willie, and then we were at the Allman Brothers Band Museum the next day hanging out.
In Macon?
Was part of yeah. It may have been a GABA Fest we were at. Eddie was hanging out with us, and he just basically told us this story. And then when we got back to Kentucky, we kind of used it as song lyrics. And I've been listening to a lot of like Atlantic R&B and a lot of Motown. I kind of wanted to bring kind of a soul song to the record, and that one turned out really nice. It's one of my favorite songs on the album.
It's really beautiful, man. A really, really sweet song. And then what I really dug is, you went old school, man. You got two nice long songs to close out the album. Very, very, very like. That's what everybody lives for. When in the old days, you put the record on, and you're living for the last song on side one and the last song or two on side two, and that was what it reminded me of. Let's talk about those. "Chasing the Sun," which is song number 10, awesome ballad, really extremely full sounding. And I was curious, do you only have 2 guitar tracks in that song, or it sounded like?
Yeah, that one was basically recorded live. We decided to go very, very sparse with the guitar tracks. That's one of those songs. There's a lot of things you could have played, but the things you don't play is what makes a song like that.
Yeah, it was a really beautiful song. What was that? What was that song about? Because you, in particular, were really like very fired up and passionate about it.
Yeah, that turned out to be a good take. The last verse, actually, I didn't really have it down. We had tried one take before, and I used some different lyrics, and then the take that we actually took the song on, I wrote the third verse kind of there on the spot. But it's kind of just a song about a journey,
That must be pretty cool. I would imagine when you're there doing it, it's like, shit, I got to get this done. I got to crank this verse out, and but to look back and think about, man, that sounds great, and I just whipped that up. That's got to be a good sense of satisfaction for you.
It was a cool moment. We done the song. The engineer David popped on. He said, "Well, you used some different lyrics that time," and then I heard Paul say, "Man, it's great. Let's just go with it." So that's what we ended up.
Awesome. And then "Let Your Love Shine Down." That was like the Beatles turned up to 11. Real pretty melody. You had a really interesting, cool, like a chromatic progression step up in between the chord changes in there. And even though the song really rocks out, that melody, it really makes it very melodic in there. And I was curious what the backstory to that song was.
That song's been around for a while. Like I said, OTIS has been together about 5 years, and that's one of the first songs that we wrote. So we had a fair amount of time to kind of develop ourselves and develop the songs before we did an album of all original material. And of course, that one's kind of become a anthem for us. Those chords you're talking about, those kind of come from like African American gospel stuff, and then once again referring back to Motown and Atlantic R&B.
Yeah, it sounded really sweet. It was it changed the dynamic of the song very much to have those in there than to have just went to the chord changes without those step ups. It really fattened it up and just gave it a lot more life. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah. It takes it to another place for sure.
It's interesting. I talk to a lot of people that will say that, funny enough, about good songs, and they'll say, I had it a while ago and it just wasn't there. And then we pulled it out, and it's amazing how like fresh eyes can really benefit you at certain times,
Oh yeah. I think that's one of the keys to being a great songwriter is knowing when and when not to pull certain songs out, and when they're ready and when they're not. But that one on the record, once we got it down, and Eddie came up and did the B3, and then we had some backup singers from a local church come in, and it was that was cool about those chords, because that was very familiar territory to them.
Yeah, that's very cool, really cool.
So it came together nice.
Beautiful, really beautiful, and great way to close out. Again, in my mind, I that's what you live for. When when it ends, it's like when you end on that, it's like going to a ride at Disneyland when you're a kid. You want to go right back on.
Yeah.
And when you have a nice closer like that, it's like I got to get this again. And at a minimum, you'll play that song, but I always usually play the whole album again because it just feels so right.
Yeah.
The song order was great. And I wouldn't imagine that's random, because nothing good is, with 99.9% of the time in life, nothing good is random. There's always deliberate, action into it. But is there a specific process that you guys went through to figure out song order?
Yeah, we did. We went into the studio with a ton of songs. We spent a lot of time at rehearsals deciding what would go on the record and what wouldn't, and like you said, it was no accident. And we spent a lot of time on the song order. It's interesting that you mentioned, you let your love shine down being last, because that's the first thing we did with the album flow. Is we wrote that as the last song, and then kind of built it from there. We wanted the album really to tell a story and speak and like I said, just serve the songs with that order and take people on a journey.
Yeah, it's great. It's funny. I had a conversation with Paul about it because his album order songs were fantastic, and I didn't realize this. He said, you never put two songs in a row that are the same chords. You never put two songs in a row that have the same tempo. And I said, and then he says you got to do the same thing when you play live. So
right.
What I'm learning as I'm going through this process and meeting more and more players is that just how difficult this whole, for people listening, it's just not like you go up on stage and plug in your fucking guitar and play. There's so many decisions that need to be made along the way. Just to plan out, forget about an album, to have a tour every night and plan out, to consider these things of planning out a set list so you don't have those same issues, that's a lot of work. It's not just, it's not like fogging a mirror. You got to put a lot of brain power into that.
Right. And even if you do write out a set list for, every show, the people that get there every night's different. And, that changes from night to night too. So it's always a climb, figuring out what's next.
But in other words, sometimes the vibe that you're getting off the audience will dictate that you need to make a change.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you got to wake them up or something, or you got to calm them down or whatever.
Yeah, or if we notice that they're really digging a certain thing, then we'll kind of hone in on that. Maybe bring some other songs in, or maybe lengthen some songs and maybe jam and improvise a little more here and there.
Yeah, I think there's a great level of I'm coming on the business side, and then to say the music business is like any other business. You've got to have such a high level of awareness to do certain things to make them succeed. It's just, uncanny. And you really got to be on top of your shit to pay if you're going to succeed. And you guys are clearly on that road. And again, everybody check out this record. It's called Eyes of the Sun. Anything else that you're working on right now that you're excited about?
We've already started writing, for the next record. We got a lot of songs in the can for that, and it's been exciting to write those and throw them into the set list here and there. So we're already kind of looking forward to that next record.
Awesome. Are you originally from Glasgow?
Yeah. Born right here in Glasgow, Kentucky.
And it sounds like you had a real good upbringing, listening to all that music and all those people around you musically.
Oh, I got really lucky with my musical upbringing. Like I said, my grandfather was a fiddler, and Dad was a guitar player. And like I said, I got a steady diet of classic country, bluegrass, western swing, that whole thing. I always thought it was, as I got older, how interesting it was that how close western swing is to the harmonies you play in southern rock music. So it was kind of like it was getting me ready for that jazz side of it.
You know who had a similar background musically is, do you know Charlie Starr?
Yeah.
I interviewed him, and he had the same thing going on, except he was a little more bluegrass influence, and he had to not be careful, but sort of historically bluegrass, they're not supposed to like electric guitar stuff. So, he in his family had to be like a little selective, but he had a very similar background, tons of influences along the same lines, and really interesting. You have any brothers or sisters?
Yeah, I have a sister that's she's I think about 10 years younger than me.
She into music at all?
No, she's not. She went the normal route.
Oh, so she's 17.
Yeah.
Oh my God, because I got a 17-year-old. Sorry, man. At least mine. She's on the edge. She's on the. I never grew up with girls, man, so I never knew like how nutty it is having like. But thank God she's on the end of it, man. She's like pretty normal now. But we had a couple of years there. What kind of work did your mom and dad do growing up?
My dad cut timber, and he traded land a lot, and we had cattle growing up and that sort of thing.
That's really cool. Then
my mom she stuck around the house and tried to keep me straight.
I hear that. That sounds cool, man. It sounds really enjoyable and healthy. So now that you've been into this a while, if you had to go back, and you may not be able to answer this question, but if you wanted to go back and give your younger self some advice from 5-8 years ago, what would you have told yourself?
I just told myself, just listen to all the music that you can. I would have spent more time listening and less time trying to play.
Interesting. And wow, that's very interesting. Listen more. Very cool. Let's talk about gear for a little bit. I love all the guitars you play, man, but I mean, you can see right here on the wall.
I own it.
What's your go-to guitar right now, and like what other two would round out your top three?
My number one right now is my 68 ES-345, where I picked that up from my friend Don Parker at Muscle Shoals Guitar Boutique in Florence, Alabama. It's an amazing guitar. Of course, what drew me to it is I've always been a huge Chuck Berry, B.B. King, Freddie King fan, so that was kind of natural for me to go for that guitar. My number two would be my 78 Les Paul Standard. And that kind of goes back to Greg. Greg played this guitar in a band called Thoroughbred, which was between Itchy Brother and the Kentucky Headhunters. So it's very cool to have
That's Greg's actual guitar.
Yeah.
Wow, man, that's something you're never going to sell.
Yeah, he like I said, he bought it new in 78, and now I have it. And he did change the pickups out before in the 70s. They have old DiMarzio Super Distortions in them, which are a lot of fun.
That's cool. Let me go back to the 345. What is the difference between the 345 and the 335?
I think it's just the 335 it's kind of the standard bare bones model. The reason they're so much higher than a 45 or 55 price wise is because of guys like Eric Clapton and all the guitar heroes playing them in the 60s and 70s. And of course the 345 has the baritone switch and a few more niceties on it than like I said than the bare bones 335.
It's funny you mentioned Freddie King. He's the person that got me to play guitar. His tone and his attack was just like, I have not heard anybody ever play like that again.
No, you never will. There's people like that. There's only one of them, and his vibrato it just sings and sings.
Yeah, he really knows how to make you move. So you got the 345, the 78 Les Paul Standard, and what would be number three?
That's a hard one. I've got a lot of guitars. It's kind of hard to pick. I guess for right now, I've got like this short scale Catalina that I bought in an antique store, and I love playing it at home. I don't have any. I have one guitar at home that's in standard tuning. The rest of them are kind of here, there, and everywhere. So I enjoy just picking it up and playing slide on it.
Any cool stories behind how you got any of your guitars? Obviously, that 78 Standard from Greg is one of them.
Yeah. The funny thing about it is the guitar ended up going to a different guy in town, and I bought it off him. I didn't get to actually buy it off Greg. So then I'm on the phone with Greg. I was like, "Hey, I think I got one of your guitars." So
that's funny how that worked out.
Yeah, that's kind of a funny story, and I guess he'd soon me have it as anybody.
Oh yeah.
And then like I said, I picked up the 345 in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, which was a really, really cool place to pick up a guitar like that. I think the guy that owned it before me, it was a one owner. I think he used it in the studio some. And
so you got a 68 with only one owner.
Yeah.
Wow, that's phenomenal. So it's in really good shape, I would imagine.
Yeah. There's things about it that are player grade, but overall, it's in really good shape.
That's fantastic, man. What are you playing through amp-wise?
Well, usually I'm playing through a 50-watt to 73 JMP Old Marshall.
Yeah, you're Greg Martin influence, that's for sure.
oh yeah. That was one of the things Greg opened my eyes to as soon as I started to hang with him was the gear. No pedals, just plug straight in, and get that sound from the wood in the guitar going through the amp, and that's where it's at.
Because I think that's all. If I remember right, all he plays to is 50-watt Marshall Plexis from late '60s.
Yeah, Greg plays through a lot of 100-watters too.
Okay, but you have a 50-watt JMP Marshall. Where'd you get that?
A friend of Greg's. He deals a lot of gear here in Kentucky. His name is Kevin Woods. He's actually a really good guitar player as well. And Greg kind of worked out the deal for me. I've had that amp for probably 5 or 6 years now.
Ballpark, if I wanted to buy something like that today, because I've heard this enough now that I've got to get a 50-watt, late 60s, early 70s, because that's all I keep hearing of the guys that I love their tone. What am I going to pay for that ballpark range?
Anywhere from $1,000 maybe. If you wanted to get wild with it, $25 or $3,000.
Okay, so between $1,000 and $3,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a great sound, though, man. That's just phenomenal.
Good.
No.
It's just a sound. You can't recreate it with anything else but the amp. It's very unique.
Oh, it's the 70s sound of rock and blues that I love. It's to me, everybody calls it, I guess, the British Brown sound, but I love it. It's warm. It's just crunchy. Anybody who's influenced your playing that people might be surprised to hear about?
I'm. We're talking about my musical upbringing. I think Roy Nichols made a really, really profound impact on me. Of course, he played for Merle Haggard for years, but he always kind of brought the blues and jazz flair to Merle's music, especially live. So I probably heard some of my first jazz and blue licks from Roy Nichols as opposed, the blues greats or the rock greats or what have you.
Sure, that is interesting. Ever sell a guitar you wish you can get back?
Oh yeah, several. I sold a Flying V. I was really fond of, and I kind of wish I had it back, or would at least have stole the pickups out of it before I sold it.
What kind of, were they original PAFs?
No, they were like Seymour Duncan Antiquities, but they sounded really good. I really liked the guitar.
What was your first guitar? Electric?
Let me think. It probably would have been one of my dad's old junkers he had around. It was kind of like a Les Paul copy. It was an old 70s Hondo and weighed a ton.
You still have that thing around?
Yeah. Yep.
That's cool that you still have it, though, because you could, it's a nostalgia to, sit up and talk about, and play once in a while, or, pass down.
Oh, yeah,
cool.
Sure.
If I asked you to pick your 3 favorite CDs today, in no particular order, knowing that that'll change or could change tonight or tomorrow, what's your knee-jerk reaction that you'd pick?
Oh, definitely Allman Brothers Band live at Fillmore East. That's that's one of the Desert Island records for sure. There.
Yeah.
Let's see. I have a Shirley Scott record I've been really fond of lately, and that's just like jazz organ trio. It's called For Members Only. I've been listening to it a lot, and let's see.
What was that? When did that come out? Because I like that kind of music.
It would have been early '60s.
I'm gonna have to check that out. Is she like kind of a Nina Simone? I don't know if you ever listened to Nina Simone.
No, it's not. It's not a jazz vocal record. It's all instrumental stuff. She's an organ player.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down and check that out.
Yeah, you'll really enjoy it. And
I like the title for members only. That's a cool.
Yeah, and I get all rounded with Bobby Blue Bland's "Two Steps from the Blues."
There you go. Tell me something about yourself, Boone, that people, besides that your name is Boone, that people would either be surprised to hear or would find a little odd.
Let's see here. That's a tough question.
It is. You're too young maybe to have some odd stuff about you too. You don't start getting odd till you're a little older. Or you don't start realizing you're odd till a little older. Let's ask this one then. What is your non-musical superpower?
Non-musical. Not sure. I'm not sure I have any. That's non-musical.
Fair enough, man. Are you single or in a relationship?
I'm married. Yeah.
Cool.
I got a little boy that's 5, and then my stepson, he's 13.
Man, congratulations! I didn't know that.
Thanks, man.
That's really nice, man. How long have you been married?
About a year and a half.
That's nice, man. Congratulations. That's really cool. How'd you guys meet?
We met through her father, who is another great guitar player. He's got a pretty good collection as well. But
I'm starting to notice the pattern of you guys in Kentucky. It's like if you're in music, it's like a tight little circle, man. You're not allowed out. That's it.
Hey, that's it. You got it, man.
Nothing wrong with that, man. You have any hobbies or interests outside of music?
Yeah, somewhat. Like I said, I collect a lot of vinyl records. Of course, collect vintage gear and antiques. Love to hunt and fish. So I've got a few interests that are outside of music.
You ever go hunting with Richard from the Headhunters?
No, but he's always telling me some good hunting stories.
Yeah, he's a big hunter, man. I know that. He was telling me something about he bagged this big deer. He said, but I needed to sit in a tree for 2 more weeks just to get my head decompressed from playing on the road. He's a pretty funny guy, man.
Yeah, that's a big part of it.
Yeah, I bet. What's the favorite part of what you do and the least favorite?
Obviously the best part is being on stage playing, or in a room with the band making music. I guess the least part of it is when things go wrong. When you get a flat tire or an amp goes down, or that's kind of. But it kind of comes with the work.
Yeah, definitely little mistakes that go along with the trade. Who's had the biggest influence on you?
I probably have to go back to Greg Martin on that, because I would probably be lost musically if it wasn't for Greg, because I was maybe 16 or 17 when I met Greg, and he brought me into this world of Les Pauls and Marshalls, turned me on to all the great blues stuff. Greg has a blues radio show on Monday nights where he just sits up there for 3 hours and just plays whatever he wants. And growing up, that was so educational to me, to flip through the radio and be able to hear Howlin' Wolf and Peter Green and Lightning Hopkins and all this stuff, because you don't get it exposed to that unless it has a host. The low down, hoedown. That's what you're talking about, right? Yeah. Yeah. What are you looking forward to now, Boone, moving forward, either musically, professionally, or personally? I'm looking forward to the upcoming year with the band. We're starting to get a lot of dates in. We got a great record to go out and promote, and and hopefully get started on the next one. Awesome. One last question, and I'm going to let you go, and I appreciate your time. What's been the biggest challenges for you personally, or even what's been the biggest changes since you started this journey, either personally or musically? Like, how have you evolved and developed over the last 10 years? As a band, we figured out that we had to start listening to a lot of music together. So now when we write songs, we have a better knowledge of what goes into making an album, what makes the albums that we all love so great, and how we can incorporate that to make it work today. I mean, obviously we can't go in and make a Pet Sounds album today and expect it to fly. So we've learned how to twist what we love into something that'll work for us in today's times.
Do you guys all write together, or is it just you, or do you bring it in the room together? How do you do that?
Steve might have an idea, or I may have an idea, but it never really comes together until we get the four of us in a room, because the way our bass player John and drummer Andrew plays is so unique that it's a real game changer when it comes to writing. So anytime the four of us are in a room together, we always start bouncing ideas.
That's great. And it's interesting you said that you're basically a better student of the game, because when I spoke with Paul, and he said for his own album, he went back and thoroughly listened to many albums from the 70s and tried to put together and some consistencies of what made these albums so great. Why did they pop the way they do? Why are they timeless classics? And it sounds like, you guys are along the same track, man.
Yeah, and then once again, having people like Greg and Paul so close to us. I mean, we were mixing, we were listening to mixes, and I would always be texting with Paul. What do we need to do here? What do we need to look for here? He's such a knowledgeable guy.
Oh yeah, he's brilliant. So, listen, man, I cannot thank you enough for your time. Let me tell people where to get turned on to you. Again, we're with Boone Froggett from the band OTIS. A couple of things that you need to do. First of all, go to their website and sign up, get on their list, and check them out when they're on tour. You guys, when does the tour start?
We're getting things going in March. We got a couple of dates before then, but we hit it pretty hard in March.
Great. This is perfect timing for this. So this is going to come out probably mid-January to late January. So, get on the OTIS band, TheOTIS band.com. The name of the band is OTIS, so it's theotisband.com. Sign up, come see them when they come to town. Support these guys. They're really awesome musicians, putting good stuff out there. The new album is called Eyes of the Sun, and you can get it on their website, the OTIS Band. You can get it iTunes, Amazon, all the usual place. It's streaming all over. That's it, man. Anything else you want to promote, or anything else, final words of wisdom?
Man, I just want to thank you for having me on the show. I've had a great time and enjoyed talking to you.
Likewise, man. It's my pleasure. Now, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys' career explode and have you come back here when, and hopefully you won't never make me go through a publicity person. No, that's all I ask. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Go out and support OTIS, the band. Thanks so much to Boone Froggett for spending time with us. I think we're going to have Steve Jewell on this show in a couple of months. I really appreciate it. And go to everyonelovesguitar.com and sign up to get notified about future episodes, along with some cool stuff for guitar players. Now, be nice, go play your guitar, and most important, have some fun. You only get one time around here. Until next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.